So we've done the look at teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. Now, Hockey Reference has a daily chart they update, which will tell you the probabilities of team making the playoffs, division. There's a lot more than what I have on the board, and I will include a link to it in the description for this video because it's really kind of fun. And I wanted to talk about things because yesterday I talked about which teams are more than likely not going to make the playoffs. What this is that they simulate the remainder of the season 1,000 times. And what that simulator tells them is your percentages you see here. So they simulate the rest of the season and the playoffs. Now the playoffs are a little bit sketchy, which is to be expected because it's so far out, right? But it's interesting because the way the standings look aren't necessarily the way that this computer tells you it's going to end up. And the guy who came up with this algorithm, whatever you want to call it, apparently he won in 2007 and 2008. ESPN had the whatever. He won that. He predicted the standings correctly using this algorithm. Now, the most important one here is that Tampa has a 100% chance of making the playoffs. Calgary, 99.4%. Those are your highest. 84.7% chance that Tampa wins the division. I can't see them not winning the division. 14.6% chance of winning the cup, which is the highest out of every team that is in the league. The interesting thing is number 2 is Toronto, and that'll make Toronto happy. 10.6% chance they win the cup, and Calgary's number 3 at 10.4%, which means there's a 25.2% chance that either Tampa or Toronto wins the cup, according to, as I said, these 1,000 simulations. Now, for Boston, it's a little trickier. 84.7% chance that they get in the playoffs, 1.5% chance they win the division, and a 4.3% chance they win the cup. Where, to me, this machine is interesting is in the Washington and Pittsburgh comparisons. Washington has a 95.7% chance of making the playoffs, 88.7% chance for Pittsburgh. Winning the division, 40.5% chance for the Capitals, 26.8% chance for Pittsburgh. Now, I agree with Pens fans that are probably saying right now, hey, we're going to win the division. Yeah, no, that was my prediction before the season started. But even though it's predicting this, for the Stanley Cup, it's a 4.5% chance for Washington, 7.1% chance for Pittsburgh. That is a very interesting number, and it makes me wonder how this whole thing works. The Islanders, who are right now 1 point below Columbus, it has them with an 85.3% chance of making the playoffs, whereas Columbus has a 77.6%. 18.2% chance the Islanders win the division, 14.1% for Columbus, even though they're mathematically ahead right now. 3.9% chance for the Cup for the New York Islanders, and Islanders fans are like, we'll take that. 3.3% chance for Columbus. Where it gets really dicey is that teams 8 and 9 in the conference, I have 9 on the board in this one, because according to the statistical 1,000 attempts, 64.7% of the time Buffalo makes it, and 60.2% of the time Montreal makes it. So this means that Columbus, Buffalo, and Montreal, according to all of the models, are the 3 teams that fight it out for that last playoff spot. And that Montreal is the one in most jeopardy, which makes sense. They're behind Buffalo right now. But they're not that far behind. They're only 4.5% lower than are the Buffalo Sabres. Their chance of winning the division, 0.1% chance. That is absolutely Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance. That is pretty much right in line with that. 2.0% chance of winning the Cup for the Montreal Canadiens. Go Carey Price. But it's interesting because 9 teams in the conference have a better than 50% chance because of the way percentages work. That doesn't mean it's broken. It just means that there's 2 teams that have a good chance, but its odds are either Buffalo or Montreal miss, according to projections from here. And I did make sure these projections include last night's games. Now, over in the West, the Winnipeg Jets have a 97.8% chance of making the playoffs. Division, 55.2%, and Cup, 7.3%. The other interesting thing is that Nashville 94.9% chance at the Cup, only a 24.3% chance at the division. But for the Cup, they have a 7.2% chance, which is only 0.1% different. So all those simulations, Nashville won almost as often as Winnipeg, even though Nashville doesn't have home ice after the first round, in all likelihood, in most of these simulations. Colorado, 80.3% chance of making the playoffs, 10.4% chance of winning the division, 4.1% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. So, like I said, the Stanley Cup is really, really widely varied. The interesting thing to me is that they give the Capitals 4.3% chance of Boston, or 4.5% chance for Washington, 4.3% chance for Boston. I really don't see Boston being that close to Washington. But, you know, that's the way they ran the simulations. Vegas, 94.7% chance to make the playoffs, 19.2% chance to win the division, 5.7% chance at the Cup. That division number will go up if Calgary loses any of those games in hand, but as long as Calgary wins those games in hand, that number's going to stay pretty strong for the Flames. San Jose has almost the same chance all the way across the board, 93.8% chance of making the playoffs, 19% chance of winning the division, 5.3% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. So again, if you're measuring Stanley Cup likelihoods, you've got Tampa first, Toronto second, Calgary third, Pittsburgh's fourth. Then you've got, or no, Pittsburgh's not fourth. Winnipeg's fourth. Nashville fifth. Pittsburgh sixth. And then you go down to Vegas and San Jose. So there you go. Dallas, 72.6% chance of making the playoffs. I'll take the under on that one. I'm sorry. After what I saw in Winnipeg last night, I'll take the under. 5.2% chance of them winning the division. 2% chance of them winning the Cup. I give them less than that personally, but again, that's me. Dallas, the interesting thing for them is that they're in, but Anaheim's out on most of these simulations. Anaheim only makes the playoffs 27.4% of the time. They win the division 0.3% of the time and win the Cup 0.3% of the time. Whereas Minnesota, who are a point behind the Vancouver Canucks but have a ton of games in hand on them, they make the playoffs 61.4% of the time, ahead of both Vancouver and Anaheim. 4.9% chance of winning the division, 2.7% chance of winning the Stanley Cup, higher odds of winning the Stanley Cup than Dallas. It's interesting. I find it really, really interesting. These are the kinds of numbers that I could pour over for days and days and days. Now, personally, if I'm going to pick division winners, I still think Pittsburgh wins the division this year. I still think Tampa's going to win the division at the start of the year. I picked Toronto. We'll just forget I said it. Winnipeg likely wins the division, but I wouldn't rule out Nashville. It is really hard to rule out Nashville. And out west, I really like what Calgary is going on. I don't know if by season's end they won't get reeled in by one of either Vegas or San Jose. That being said, they are definitely a playoff team in my eyes. And I would not want to play Calgary in a best-of-7 series. They just have too many weapons that can hurt you offensively. And if Riddick can get hot for any period of time in the playoffs, Calgary's going to be one hell of a hard out. That is going to be a really tough team to play in the playoffs. I did notice, too, that the Canucks, 23.3% chance of making the playoffs, 0 chance of winning the division, 0.2% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. So these numbers, the simulation, it's interesting to me because, you know, it does kind of go in line with where we kind of see things going. Anaheim's 8 losses in a row. Definitely not going to have a computer projecting out that they're going to make the playoffs at this point. And yes, things can change dramatically. We're only halfway through the season. I think it's fun to look at. So my recommendation to you guys is go ahead and click on the link in the description because it is fun to look at. And there's a lot more data than this. I wanted to give you guys playoff, division, and cup. And but there's so much, and then they update it regularly. So we can take another look at this, say, like next month, maybe right before the trade deadline. So we have a good idea of who's completely out. Like, for instance, I didn't show the next team down because I think the next team in playoff probability, I believe it's Carolina with a 17% chance of making it. So These are your 9 that are going to fight it out for the playoffs according to the computer simulations. And while it looks like I got more teams on the West, to be honest, both Anaheim and Vancouver at this point look like they're both bridesmaids to the Minnesota Wild. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Who ends up winning the divisions? Because that's kind of fun. Like I said, for me, it's Pittsburgh, Tampa, it's Winnipeg, and then cautiously Calgary. But I do think that San Jose has an excellent chance of winning that division. They were my pick before the season started, and I still think they have an excellent chance at winning the division. Some things have to fall their way. Calgary probably has to be a little bit cold for at least a 10-game period for San Jose to really get up there, but I do think it's possible. But I'd be interested to know what you guys think in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through just happened upon this video. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.